This is Melanie Davis, founder of Triumph Press, and I'm here again with Baily Smith, author of the best-selling book, Married to an Illusion, A Survivor's Guide to Identifying and Escaping Narcissistic Abuse, which went to #1 as a hot new release and has been able to continue to remain in the best-selling list on Amazon because it's just full of great information. Important information that anyone who is in a narcissistic relationship or wants to never be in one needs to read. So welcome back to the show, Baily.
And Melanie, thank you so much for having me. I could have never done this book without you. And it is such an important book. And not just because it's mine and yours, but because it is so important for people to have that awareness. And I will repeat myself on every single show. We must have that awareness and education so that we break this cycle and pandemic that is walking this earth and destroying our children. So
Yeah. So today's episode is very important because what we are going to cover are the different types of narcissists. And at the start of this, we're just going to point out that there's many types, but these are some of the key ones you need to understand that will help you to identify what you may be dealing with. And so, Baily, do you want to start off with the narcissist types that you have identified in your book?
Absolutely. And I hope that you guys don't mind. I'm going to read a little bit from the book. You know, it's kind of hard when you want to get all this information out there to have it all memorized.
Definitely.
So there are 4 different types of narcissists that we discuss in the book. And there most likely are probably many more. It's the first one is Grandiose narcissist. These are the narcissists that believe without a doubt that they are superior to others. They are extroverted, assertive, and display such traits as extreme confidence, entitlement, impulsivity. The grandiose narcissist is full of self-assurance and bravado. And these types of narcissists are exhibitionists who express their grandiosity by making highly exaggerated claims about themselves. So I would say that they pretty much live in a fantasy world, in their own little fantasy world. So that is the grandiose narcissist. On the other end of the spectrum, you have your covert narcissist, who has diminished self-esteem so that their narcissist traits are less obvious, and they may intentionally appear to be humble, meek, even broken by sharing their heartbreaking, sad stories from their childhood, winning over their supply by initiating high levels of empathy, concern, and just to, bring you in, especially if you're an empathetic person.
Yeah, and just to point out that word supply, because that might be new to people, and that's something we'll talk more about. Supply, you as someone that's in a relationship with a narcissist, you need to understand you're not their girlfriend or their boyfriend or their best friend. You are the supply that feeds their need to feel important, and that's what they're looking for. So,
right. And they have many. So they'll have their main supply.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're married to them, you are their main supply. And especially if you have children with them, and then they'll have many more.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the malignant narcissist. These narcissists poses a greater danger because of their callous, sadistic nature. They intentionally harm you, and they actually enjoy it. You will catch a malignant narcissist smiling and finding twisted joy in the midst of seeing someone suffer. Being the cause of such misery is a win for them. And narcissists in general see themselves as victims, but rather than using their pain to become a force for good, they choose the evil. So, those are very dangerous ones. I mean, they're all very dangerous, but I would say malignant narcissists probably have traits of psychosis and psychopathic or sociopathic traits.
I was thinking that's a very pathological behavior that goes beyond just the weak, abused child that's trying to protect itself with a godlike figure that needs to have their ego reinforced constantly by their supply. But once you start to get into the malignant type, that's where they're really building their ego on hurting other people, and those are very dangerous.
Yeah, it's beyond sickening. And then you have your combination types, malignant, covert narcissist. They are by far the most dangerous. In public, they can be kind, thoughtful, caring, funny, and sweet. In fact, they've lured you in with their kindness and compassion. And over time, they will have you so thoroughly captivated that they can completely drop the charming act long after the kind and tender facade has disintegrated. It is after suffering tremendous abuse that you finally figure out this person is a complete fraud. And when you break through the truth of their devilish nature, you are in grave danger. You've already been trauma bonded and sucked in and manipulated, and it's very scary, very, very scary.
And we'll be covering topics like trauma bonding, which is really important to understand that for somebody who's not been sucked in and manipulated by a narcissist, it might seem like, well, once they're mean to you, then you get out of there. But it's not that possible. And we'll cover that. But so there's different, there's the grandiose is right out there in your face. The covert is hidden and you don't even have any idea that that's what you're dealing with. And then the malignancy, of course, could come into play with either grandiose or covert. And you can see a mix. So I know that you and I were talking as we were writing the book. And so, Baily, I wonder if you would just share a little bit about your experience, because I know that your ex, the person that taught you that this exists in the hardest way possible, he would move between different types. So I think it'd be great if you could show through example, which is what your book does. Every chapter you tell your story and then you explain what can be learned from it. So would you tell a little bit more about what it was like to be with a narcissist and how he would sort of change colors, so to speak?
Well, it goes back to being married to an illusion. This was not somebody, this creature was not somebody I really knew at all. So we had the charm, the love bombing, which we talked about prior, where I was sucked in and lured in, and then, there were the days where the mood swings, I always walked on eggshells. I never knew which creature would walk in that door that evening after work. And then there would be little notes left at the coffee maker. And I talk about it in the book, oh, I love you, have a wonderful day, and blah, blah, blah. That was part of the charm and the trying to suck me in. And then again, that evening, I had no idea which personality, which narcissist was coming home. And then you had the one where I will talk a lot about my post-separation abuse, where I was tortured. So you had the evil, the one that actually almost tried to kill me. And, you know, remember there were children around. And there was no, that there was no, like, there was no, like, he didn't care, you know. And I mention a lot about having people around, and, you know, you had the creature that was all nice and everything, and would show off and do the dishes and act like the greatest, spouse or father. And then behind the scenes, put me down and torture me mentally and verbally. And you know, so I literally, for over 21 years, and we're not going to even go into the torturing part of post-separation, I literally never knew what would happen.
So the phraseology, and you actually have a whole chapter in your book, is that when it comes to the different types, it was a Jekyll and Hyde,
Yeah.
right? So you never
My
knew.
mother my
Mhm.
mother would always say that to me.
Yeah. And so that's, so when you're dealing with the types of narcissists, well, it could be any of those. It could be a combination of them. It could be this very humble, loving appearing person who's gaining your sympathy, and then all of a sudden this person is out to intentionally hurt you. And that's where the covert narcissist is so dangerous, because you have your protection down the most when you're with somebody who you think is being humble and sincere, and then they turn around and intentionally hurt you. So I think it'd be really good for those who are watching this to share your stories, because the truth is, we learned a lot, especially while writing this book, by talking to other people and seeing the comments that other people are making in different social media platforms. And sometimes we learn so much just from sharing our stories and identifying patterns. Like you said earlier, Baily, I think it was in this episode, or maybe it was last episode, but I think it was last episode, you talked about your sister-in-law, and she turned in a report about narcissism, and the professor really wasn't familiar with it. So it's kind of a relatively new phenomenon. It's not necessarily new in the lives of people, but as far as understanding it as a personality disorder, we really do need to learn from each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, while learning about NPD, narcissistic personality, it is important to recognize that we all can display signs of narcissism. But there's healthy, you know, and then there's when you're being groomed. And first impressions matter. And it could be said that we manipulate opportunities and others for our own gain. So those are not the good ones, you know. Those of us that like to take pictures of ourselves and post it on social media because it makes us feel good, that doesn't make you a narcissist. That makes you somebody that needs to feel good about yourself. So there's, you know, learning. There's so much information that needs to be learned and taught and understood, because we all have those traits. And I don't want to say that every person is a narcissist. I would say that, I don't know what the statistic is, but 1 out of every 4. I don't know. I mean, I think maybe I really don't know what the statistics are anymore.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, but that's such an important point, because there's a lot of criticism that comes about sometimes from people who want to say, "Oh, you're just going to call everyone a narcissist."
Right. I got that last night.
I get that too. And part of the reason I was able to help you write this book is because I've dealt with narcissists. And in my case, I had a covert narcissist, was the one that hurt me the most. And so it's so traumatic and dangerous that regardless of, I'm trying to think what the word is, regardless of how scientific it is or how scientifically we are approaching it. In other words, you and I are not counselors. We haven't been to the university to be taught what is and isn't a narcissist, but that doesn't take away from our ability to step up and say, hey, this is an issue and we've got to protect people, because if we don't start talking about it and teaching, then it's going to continue to, it seems to be growing. And I think it's growing because there hadn't been enough people doing exactly what you're doing, Baily, which is to say, this is a thing, this is a real problem. And he nearly killed you. And that's very common. They often can kill. And if they don't kill you physically, they kill you emotionally, they kill you mentally. And so, yes, we have to talk about it and know, just because somebody may come across confident or even overconfident, that sounds like a grandiose narcissist.
They just have a big ego.
Yeah, we're not saying that just because somebody's egotistical that, well, he's automatically or she's automatically a grandiose narcissist. However, that is definitely a trait of a narcissist. So you need to, at the very least, be able to say, that's a red flag. And that's a term we'll talk about soon, is red flags, or that's a sign. And you don't have to immediately say, oh, he's a narcissist when you see one red flag or two red flags. But when you start to see 3 and 4 and 5 and 10 red flags, and that will be the topic of one of our next shows, is the symptoms. When you start to see multiples, it's okay to step back and say, you know what, I'm going to protect myself. I'm going to protect my children. And I'm going to consider that you could be somebody with this personality disorder. So,
and also one other thing that's important is not everybody that's broken or had a difficult childhood will turn into a narcissist. You know, there are certain things that happen to people in their childhood, and they have a difficult growing up, but then at some point in their life, they want to get fixed and better, and they seek the help. And you know, those are not bad people. Those are people like me and like you, who've experienced things in our lives, and we want to get better. And as long as you know that you're not getting better overnight, that it's a lifelong journey of work. And last night, I was out with a friend and a friend of hers, and he's like, "What? You're going to stay single forever because you're not going to trust anybody because nobody's going to be perfect?" No, nobody's perfect, but I am not going to settle for anything or anyone that is less or that's unhealthy and won't admit that they're unhealthy. And unfortunately, the older you get, and you haven't admitted I have these problems, the harder it is to get better and to start working on that journey. So
I think it's really important. I want to springboard off what you just said, and I want to add the fact that your book is it's 300 pages, 330 pages. Don't be intimidated by that.
Pictures. There's a lot of pictures.
But the point is, there's a lot to understand, and we're just beginning to break open how to spot a narcissist, how to protect yourself from a narcissist, how to escape the abuse. And this is why it's so important to buy your book and to read your book, because each chapter builds on itself. So as we're doing these shorter episodes, we're building on the information that's in the book. So right now you're learning about the different types of narcissists. Well, that becomes important because in our next episode, when we talk about signs, you'll be able to identify, okay, that's the behavior of a covert narcissist, or that's the behavior of a malignant narcissist. So you have to have this information to build on to get to the point where you can successfully identify when you are actually dealing with a dangerous person versus just a person who needs to work on themselves and maybe get some therapy. So the point that I want to make is that it's it's really great if you're watching this show. We want to help you. Our number one reason for doing this, for talking about this book, for writing the book and publishing it, is we want to protect people from the kind of suffering that you've been through and I went through in my own ways.
And so many others.
Yeah. So we're kind of at the end of our time for this episode. We're going to continue to put great information out from your book, but I really encourage everybody who's watching to go to Amazon and find Married to an Illusion by Baily Smith and get yourself a copy. You're going to fill it with highlights and notes, and come watch these shows. Baily's adding to what's in her book as we talk, and definitely we'd love to see the comment section full of people's thoughts and experiences. And you know what? Have you experienced another type of narcissist that you'd like to share? Write it in the comments. That would be amazing, so that we can continue to learn from each other. We definitely encourage you to please give us a big thumbs up. If you like the show, hit that like button and share it with anybody that you know that needs this information, because the truth is, everyone needs this information. We're all potential victims of this type of abuse. And if you subscribe to the show and you hit the little bell, you'll be alerted every time we have a new episode, because we have a lot to cover. I'll be filming a lot of shows with Baily. We're just getting started. And we'd love to have you come back and continue to go on this journey of education and understanding with us. And we'll be getting to some really positive points as well, which is where we'll start to talk about how you escape, how you heal, and how you help others and how you help the community, because we definitely have got to take this problem on, not just individually, but as a community. And that's how we stop this cycle. So
Thank you.
Any final thoughts, Baily, as we say goodbye?
No, I think that you said it all. I mean, we're here to, we're spending our Sunday afternoons doing this, not just for ourselves. We're doing it for those out there that definitely can need this information. It's a pandemic, and we're living in such a really, really bad time right now. And if we can break free from one of the pandemics out there, just by educating ourselves, educating our children, breaking that vicious cycle, then we're one step in the right direction. And again, the reason why I wrote this book was to make meaning out of it and to help others. And I hope that I'm doing that.
I believe that you are. You're doing an amazing job. Thank you so much, Baily, for coming on. And I look forward to seeing everybody again very soon.
Thank you.